Hey everyone, welcome to Moms That Conquer. I am your host, Julie Rodriguez, and we are here with I always say little cousin, but you're not my little cousin anymore because you're like a big girl.
I'm a woman.
My cousin Joselyn, we call her Nana. Welcome to our new followers, right? Welcome to all of our followers that have been supportive since day one. As I continue to say, and I will always say in every segment, this is an open platform with vulnerability from me and my guests to talk about different topics and different perspectives on life and parenthood. Um, Moms that conquer, but men are also welcome. So if you're a man and new follower, welcome to the party. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having
Of
me.
course, we're gonna get right into it. So today's topic of discussion is co-parenting. Co-parenting with a little traveling, with a little single parenting. We're gonna mix it all up today. We're gonna talk to you about your journey on those three topics, right? I always say that parenting is the most rewarding yet challenging job anybody can face.
Yeah.
But co-parenting may be on a whole nother level. So we're gonna go right into it. Okay. So Nana, Joselyn, I'll stick to Joselyn, right? You recently, maybe a little bit over a year ago, right? You picked up
2 years.
2 years.
It's 2 years this month.
2 years this month. Congratulations. She was living in New York, right? And you decided to pick up and move to Florida.
Yeah.
With your son, who's now how old?
He'll be 4.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about that journey and the emotions that you dealt with when deciding that you were going to take your son and move to another state and know he was not going to be around his dad like constantly.
Well, moving to Florida was always like my dream before having a child. And my sister,
right?
Because I moved with my sister. That's the whole point too. And we had plans to move to Florida in about, I think, like 2018. And we had it set in stone. We were leaving in January, and then she got pregnant.
Yes.
So then when she got pregnant, we were like, okay, now we have to stay. So we stood. And then I had a baby, then she had another baby. Then we just kept having babies.
Just popping out babies.
We just kept having babies and delaying our goal and our dream. And it just kept coming back up of like wanting to live in Florida. And her son, he was starting school that year. So we were like, if we want to make this move, we have to make it now before he starts school, because we would hate to like pick up and like change his schools and all that, change the whole life. So we decided that was the year that we needed to make it happen. And we did. As far as me leaving with my son away from his dad, I had the conversation with his dad maybe 2 months before I left.
2 months before. Girls, ladies, do not do that.
Because
communication.
The thing is, it took us a while to get to where we are today.
Right. Maturity. Comes with maturity and growth.
A lot. So we weren't always the best at communication. And so when I did bring it up to him, he said, okay, like, but then I think he didn't realize it
He's not going to be next to his son.
Yeah, until it was really happening. But he never gave me an issue about it when I mentioned it, when I was moving, when I was packing my stuff. He helped me pack my stuff. Like,
that's sweet.
But yeah.
So you're living in Florida now. Ashton's away from his dad full-time, right? Well, you guys have a co-parenting schedule.
We went to court shortly after I moved, and then we have a visitation agreement. So Ashton comes to New York. He has to come at least 4 times a year to stay with his dad. So he's come over 4 times a year since we've lived there. And he'll stay for like a week, 2 weeks at a time. So he sees him kind of often, I would say.
I mean, I kudos to you for having some type of structure when it comes down to making sure that your son stays involved with traveling to see his dad. So for anybody that's co-parenting out there, as Nana's doing with the father of her son, make sure that you put the children first, right? Because it's important to have, if you have an active parent,
yeah,
make sure they stay involved. Give them the
I would
opportunity to stay involved.
I would say that makes it like the better, like it makes it a lot better that he wants to be in his life,
Right.
because I see that a lot. Is like a lot of guys, you kind of have to force them to take care of their kids,
Mhm.
and he's the opposite. Like he would rather have his kid full time if I let
Yeah.
him. Like if I let him, he would have him full time, and so it just makes it easier for me because he wants to be involved. He wants to be active. So I'm not really
And that, and
forcing
unfortunately,
anybody to watch him.
yeah, I mean, and that's amazing because unfortunately, not everybody's as fortunate as you, where they're in
Yeah.
a co-parenting situation, and that parent, it's like a force to be the second parent, and that's not a good feeling either. So back to what you were saying before, I think that's extremely important to have that communication with your partner, whether you guys can get on the same page or not. At least you have that sense of communication for the sake of your children.
Yeah.
Right? Now, do you have any guilt? And I hate to use this word because I hate when people feel guilty about things, but do you have any guilt about moving to Florida and making that adjustment for Ashton?
So I think that Florida is the best life I'm gonna give him, and the only thing I would change is I tell his dad like you should move to Florida too.
Okay.
I'm like you and your girlfriend should move to Florida, and then I think my son would have like the perfect life,
Yeah.
because obviously as he gets older it's going to get a little harder traveling when he's going to be in school. It's just going to look a little different. Now that he's not in school, he can up and go whenever, but that's also might affect him in a way.
Yeah.
Move like
It's a transition.
Yeah, traveling a lot. But I know he loves his dad. I know his dad loves him, so it would be ideal if his dad would just live where we live. But who knows?
So let's
maybe
just bring them all on over.
Maybe in
right?
the future we'll come back to that. So hopefully,
Good. I respect that. It's not. We're gonna have a sense of guilt in our life when we do things, especially when our children are involved. But don't be hard on yourself as a parent, right? Do the best that you can to make sure that you have this co-parenting relationship with your partner. But to Nina's point, do what is beneficial for your kid.
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes it's not always gonna work out for you and your partner. But if it's an A1 situation for your kid, then you just might have to go for it.
Yeah, his dad tells me that. Like he told me that recently. Like he knows that is the best place for Ashton to be.
That's amazing.
Like he knows how good he has it there. He has a house. He has a backyard. You know, like we didn't have that when we lived in New York. So he told me that recently. He's like, I'm okay with him being there. Like that's the best place for him to be. So
yeah. So he's complimenting your parenting skills. That's sweet. Y'all grew.
Come a long way.
How do you manage having your own free time and still becoming like an individual outside of your mom? Because technically, and we'll get to this direction, but technically there are times that you're a single mom. Like you're on your own. So how do you manage your own free time and becoming Nena, the purpose of Nena?
Oh, because I mean,
because you don't.
I'm like I don't get much time away from him.
Yeah.
But I do think that I know the importance of prioritizing your own self-care as a mother,
right,
and putting your priorities and goals first, because that helps you become a better mother. So
absolutely.
I do know that I prioritize that even if I'm with him. Like he's not an excuse. Like he's just my reason. So it's not like
that was so cute. I love that.
It's not like
did y'all hear her? He's not an excuse. He's her reason. He's her purpose.
Yeah. So it's not like because I have him with me 24/7, I can't do anything. Like I'm gonna still figure out how to do things with him, but also for myself, and then be intentional with him as well. But
right. I believe that a lot of people get into a sense of fear when co-parenting comes into play, because they lose themselves as individuals, because right away their mindset flows to think, oh my God, I'm going to be by myself. Like, how can I live without this man, or how can I live without this woman? How am I going to be able to be a good parent? But that's not the case.
So I would say like when I first became a single mother I was living in New York.
Right.
Still. Because I moved to Florida with my sister, I got a little taste of not being alone because I'm living with another adult.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, it was just me and Ashton by ourselves for an entire over almost 2 years. We lived alone, and that was when I got a real taste of single motherhood because I did like I had no help, and it wasn't towards the end until that me and his dad got along better, and then we started co-parenting, and he would help me and take him a lot and stuff, and then give me my space and my time. But before that, I had to just figure things out like with him, regardless, because I didn't have any other like way to do things. So
that must have been extremely emotional, like hard.
it was. He was only 3 months old when I first lived alone with him, and at first I felt like I didn't understand why people didn't want to help me, especially like family and stuff. But then it wasn't, it was shortly after that my best friend told me, like, nobody's going to come to save you. Like, this is your life. This is your kid. Nobody is responsible for that except for you. And it like switched something in my brain that was like, you're right. And that was when I just completely changed. And I never looked at it as like, I didn't want pity from anyone. I wanted to like make sure I got this done by myself. And like, it was more of like an accomplishment. And I was happy to do it. I enjoyed being a single mother. Like, I embraced it. And I was like, this is not like, it doesn't define me. Like, oh, you're a single mother. Like, I was happy to be that because I was like, wow, like, look at all this that I'm doing by myself. I don't need anyone else's help. So
it's a sense of independency, but then there's other people that have a different perspective than you, right? They don't want to deal with that. Whoever's out there, you don't want to deal with that struggle, and you don't want to feel alone. But to revert back to what Nana said, you're not alone. You have your kid, right?
Yeah.
Your kid is going to help you define who you are as a person and a mother. So that way you could build that sense of maturity, and your journey on motherhood can be brightened.
Yeah, I think that being alone was probably the best thing that happened to us because I was able to parent however I wanted to parent, nobody else's, outside opinions. It was great. So sometimes people think that they need someone else, but if that person is not the right person for you, that can also be, it hurts you more than to being with someone than to be alone. So and that's just not the environment I wanted my son in. So it was just better off that I was alone, and I embraced that. And it was just like, like when I look back at it, I'm like, that was the best time of our lives, like so far, because we were just like, it was just us, and like it was just so fun.
Yeah, it was a selfish moment for you because you didn't have to share him with anyone, right?
Yeah.
So I want to go back to what we were saying though, because now that you brought that up, and now you're co-parenting, which journey do you feel is a better transition for the two of you?
Well, yeah, like I enjoy co-parenting. I enjoy my time away from him as well. Like, I'm not one of those moms that is like feeling guilty when I'm not around my kid. Like, if he's with his dad,
you good.
He is full. He needs to have the same amount of time with his dad that he does with his mom. Like, I'm not feeling guilty that he's with his dad for 2 weeks because he's with me 24/7. So why would I feel bad? Like, listen, I'm on vacation and he's not, and it's like, I don't feel any guilt. Like,
listen, I thank God for the heavens above, from the heavens above, for my situation. But there be times that I want to be like, kids, go with your dad for the weekend. Like,
yeah,
because they be trying me. But okay, I mean, I would say that I would, based off our conversation, then you feel like co-parenting has been the best thing for Ashton right now.
Yeah.
As opposed to you guys being alone.
Too,
I know it was fun for you, but when everybody needs their parents.
Exactly. When we lived in New York, and right before I moved, and he was seeing his dad a lot, that was a great time because I started getting my alone time for the first time, and he was like 9 months old or something.
And we all need that sometimes. And I think we talked about that in previous segments. When you're a mom or a dad, it's so important to just sometimes, like, and you can do that without your children around.
I don't have that separation anxiety.
Not me either. what do you feel is the importance of making sure Ashton knows who his father is? Like, because he's away,
Yeah.
right? So I'm sure he's young too. So kids forget things sometimes. And like, how important is it for you to make sure that Ashton is fully aware that this is my dad?
I think it's important for everyone to know their father, especially the way I grew up. I grew up raised basically by my stepfather, but I still had a great relationship with my father because my mom allowed us to do that. And so I think I always think of that situation when I think of my kid, because I'm like, I want him to know his dad, regardless of whatever personal things we've been through. I wouldn't let that affect my child. And eventually, when he grows up, he would have his own. He makes his own decisions of who he feels, what he feels about his father, or what he wants his relationship to be like with his father. But that's why I feel like for now, I would never like take him from him, like in that sense of like you never can see him ever in your life, unless he puts him in harm. But he doesn't. So but that, yeah, I think it's very important for your kids to know both their parents equally. So.
Absolutely, and I totally agree with what she says. And for you guys, right? If you are co-parenting, what's the importance of making sure that that whether it's a mom or dad, because we have fathers that have full custody of their children and they co-parent with moms, but the importance of making sure that the children understand who their other parent is, right? Because to your point, our kids are going to get older at some point and make decisions on who they want to have in their lives. But I really credit you for making sure that you instill that into Ashton and you don't bash his father as an individual, because you don't want to do that to your kids, right? Like if you're in a co-parenting situation, don't bash the
I
other
think
parent.
that is so important because my mom never did that to about our dad, and it wasn't until we were older that we started to realize things. We're like, why didn't you ever tell us that? And she's like, that's just not like, it's not my place to tell you that. It's your own, like, you have your own decision and your own opinion about people in your lives, but it's not up to me to alter your decision and the way you view people. So that's the way that I look at it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that for your son too, and I love that for his dad, because I think that is what gives you guys a very good communication situation, because you guys aren't bashing each other. Don't bash the parents, guys. Don't bash the parents. And not every situation's perfect, right? Not everything's ideal. She's had her struggles when it comes down to managing communication with her son's dad, and I'm sure there are people out there that have struggles, and we're not having this conversation so that you can think as rainbows and butterflies. We're giving you the insight of and perspective of her life, but hoping that you guys understand too that struggles are okay, but work through them and communicate so that way you can put your children first, because we're parents that conquer, right? Okay.
Yeah, your personal issues with each other shouldn't affect your kid.
No. In any situation though, I feel like even relationships, it's so hard. I don't know if you can answer this question, but we're gonna go there, right? So I think it's pretty easy, but sometimes I think about these questions and then I think about my guests and I think about my audience, and I want us all to be on the same page. So if it doesn't make sense, you tell me, okay?
Okay.
What rules have you decided on and how have you enforced them when it came down to co-parenting? Do you need me to elaborate?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll elaborate a little bit. We're here in Florida. This is the structure that I'm gonna follow for him. And you are not gonna, and you're enforcing it that way, and you're not gonna allow his father to dictate anything. Like, these are the rules. This is what I'm enforcing and sticking by. Like, he can't eat broccoli. He can't eat chips. Like, you know, those kind of things.
That is a good question. So I learned very early on, because his dad is not full time with him, I do not dictate anything that he does with him.
Okay.
Like, you know, you want to be the fun parent, you want to give him candy at 2:00 in the morning, and I don't normally do that, then you go ahead and do it. Because I can give him all these rules, but at the end of the day, he's going to do what he wants.
Right.
Regardless. And I'm not there to know. So I'm not going to stress myself out, like, knowing if he's doing it or not. Like, for example, like, I stopped giving Ashton bottles, but he gives him a bottle. when he's there. And Ashton knows better. Like he'll like tell me on FaceTime, like, I have a bottle, haha, like laughing. And then his dad is like, haha, and they think it's funny. And I'm like, whatever, as long as you know when you come back to my house, you're not having a bottle. So it's
so you have like your own set of rules that you follow, that you don't allow him to change, but you allow him to have his own rules, and you respect his parenting, is what you're saying.
Yeah, basically. Okay. I try not to, what is it called? Like micromanage.
Yeah. Like, for those of you that are co-parenting, do you micromanage your partner or ex-partner, whatever you want to call them, your co-parent?
It actually took me a little while to figure it out, because like the first year, like, the first year of the kid's life, they should not be eating sugar and stuff. And and I seen him give him ice cream one time, and I'm like, are you crazy? Like, why are you doing that? And like, I'm freaking myself out. I'm like, why are you feeding him this? And I'm like screaming at him. And then eventually I just kind of like let it go, and I'm just like, you know what, I'm not gonna stress myself out. He does what he wants to do. If it's like I said, if it's not putting him in any harm, he just wants to be the fun parent.
That comes down to a level of trust, though.
And he's also not with him all the time. Right. So whatever was 2 weeks out of the year, out of every few months, eating, drinking bottles.
I'm not in that situation. However, I fully agree, and my opinion, I fully agree with not micromanaging the other parent or the parent, as long as you know that your kid's not in harm's way, which God willing, it would never happen. Because as you grow as an individual, or a parent, you don't want nobody micromanaging you. In order for you to learn as a parent, you have to make mistakes, and you have to figure out what works best for you and your child. So to give somebody that same energy and hover over everything they're doing as a parent, you're just making them become the parent that you are, and not the parent that they're capable of being.
Yeah. Because we're gonna have different parenting styles, and it's just up to us also to respect it, because then that your child is going to respect it. Yeah. If you're always like second guessing their ability, then now your kid is gonna pick up on that and be like, yeah, I don't need to listen to you because my mom.
Let me ask my mommy.
My mom knows better than you, so let me ask my mom.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with that. And I have a follow-up question to that part, though. How do you compromise and resolve together, or resolve together for difficult situations?
I would say he's gotten to the point that he kind of trusts my ability as a mother. Like, he kind of trusts whatever I say at this point. But we haven't really had anything that's like hard, except for like the moving. Yeah. And then the moving was just that he needed it on paper that he can have visitation rights.
That, yeah.
And that was really all he asked. But as far as like, I have full custody, so like legally I'm the one that can make the important decisions on my own. But obviously I ask him his opinion a lot of times if need be, but we really haven't. Maybe when he gets older, it's gonna get a little, school, because you
guys are gonna compromise on that. His friends, his career, things that you want to make sure that you instill in him. But I know, based off of us conversing right now, aside from communication, and I brought this up earlier, you just brought this up now, trust. It's a huge factor, and the fact that he trusts you, and for you guys, you're trusting that other parent, it's going to give your children the opportunity to not have to put you and whoever it is in a situation where you have to compromise and resolve something together and make it difficult. Like, it becomes easier when trust is involved and communication is involved.
Yeah, when you're against each other, then it's like harder to come to a solution.
Right.
And then the kid is the one who's getting...
It only impacts the kids, right? Because you did say, too, like, I don't want Ashton to be like, well, my mommy or my daddy. And you don't want that for your kids to say, well, my mommy and my daddy. Unless you're like Jordan. If I say no and candy, he's like, I'm going to ask my daddy. So you go ask your daddy and go get some candy. So we're going to do a little swerve here, guys, because I should have brought this up at the beginning of the call, but Nana is actually pregnant.
I was just thinking that. I'm like, if we end it without talking about my pregnancy, there's going to be a lot of questions like, wait, you're a single mom, co-parenting. Who got you pregnant, girl? Like, whose baby is that?
We get it there. We get it there. Slow transition.
That is too funny.
Slow transition. So Nena is pregnant and due next month. She's actually pregnant with her baby boy. And so now that you are in a relationship, right? Mm-hmm. Because you are fully committed in a relationship to your new son's father, and new, God willing, he's going to be an amazing, beautiful, healthy baby. Do you feel that you strive harder in this relationship to avoid the experiencing of having to go through co-parenting again with this new baby?
Oh my God, that's a great question. Because yeah, I am the type, especially within the past few years, after all of my like self-healing and stuff, I just won't put up with anything anymore. Right. When it comes, like, if I feel like it doesn't serve me, if it's not doing anything for me, I'm just like, I don't want to deal with it. Mm-hmm. But I've always had like an avoidance personality in all of my relationships. Like, if we argue, I don't want to like talk. I want to like have my space. Like, I have that avoidance personality. But I know that I want a family. I know that that's my goal. I want a 2-parent home. I want my son to grow up with his father in the home. So I know that it's also my job now that I have to work hard to make sure that I'm like fighting for my relationship, basically. Like, I'm not just gonna give up because, oh my God, like the way you breathe, I can't stand you. Like, get out of my space. Like,
that's gonna happen.
Like, it's like, really it's like I'm not gonna just give up after anything now. It's more of just like making just more of a sacrifice and just really thinking about like, this is the goal and this is what I want. So it's a lot of change for me because it's a whole different personality I have to be, like, just also just being like submissive because I've been in my masculine for so long, being alone. I had to be because I was so independent. Now having a man in the home and even him being like, he's Ashton's stepdad now, so he even has an opinion when it comes to Ashton, and I'm like, I have to step back sometimes. I'm like, okay, let him say what he wants to say to him, and again, he's not putting my son in harm, so that's fine. But I'm not gonna like question him just because I'm his mother and like, oh, I'm his mother, like, don't talk to him. Like, I got it, because I want that partnership. So I'm not gonna overstep either and like not allow him to help me, because I do want him to help me. So I had to respect that and allow that to happen. And I know that is very hard, especially when I know it's probably it's already hard when it's both of your child. Like, it's like me with Ashton's dad. It's already hard when I'm like, sometimes I would hear him like say something to him and I'm like, don't talk to him like that. But it's a lot harder, obviously, when that's not their child, and it's like, but
who do you think you is?
Yeah, like, I'm his mother. Like, but no, like, I mean,
respect, trust, and communication. Yeah. That's what it all comes down to.
Yeah.
So this is so interesting, right? Because you went from being in a relationship with Ashton's dad to then being a single parent to now co-parenting to now getting into a relationship and expecting another baby. So it's a lot of transition for you, for Ashton.
For Ashton, yeah.
Right? What would you say is the biggest thing for you to focus on, back to your co-parenting thing, because that is not Ashton's dad. And I think that, yes, you want him to understand that he has to respect your partner, but how are you going to go back to focusing to let Ashton know this is your daddy? Like, what tips do you have for our audience to separate the two, right? Because he has a dad, his dad is active, and then he has a stepdad.
Yeah, so that's it's hard to say because I have a stepdad and I consider him my dad.
Right.
I think that I have 2 dads. I always tell everyone I have 2 dads.
Yeah.
I was blessed enough to have that. I have a great relationship with both. Mm-hmm. Even though I was in the house raised by my stepdad because I lived with him, I still had a great relationship outside with my dad. So I view it in that way, that can be also his dad, but him just knowing, like, I mean, he's gonna know, like, he's loved by them both. Mm-hmm. And that, I think that's amazing. Like, the more love that you can get, the better. Yes, so
give me all the
I don't.
Love, give me all the love.
I think that I was blessed growing up with 2 dads, so I think the same for my son. Now he's blessed to have 2 men that love him, and especially when it's not your like blood and they love you the same, then that's even more like special.
Yeah. Now, I didn't have this as a question, but because we're just flowing conversation, um, you would say that you your relationship now with your partner, your baby daddy, your partner, baby daddy. I love that word. Do you feel like you're gonna make sure that he respects your co-parenting and nothing's gonna impact that?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
he does. This is his first kid, by the way, so he doesn't have experience when it comes to co-parenting or having to deal with that. So it might take some adjustment. I think the fact that Ashton's dad is in another state
It's easy.
makes it easier because like he don't got to
Right.
see him, he don't got to
It's
hear from him,
easy.
you know. But I think with time you just evolve and you just get to understand the situation a little better, and
Yeah.
that's really it. He's respected so far. Like,
Yeah.
he, like I said, there's not really much that he has to deal with when it comes to that because he's in a whole nother state. So it's
Yeah.
like,
But I think taking a grasp of our entire conversation, right? To speak to our audience and pause for a minute. For those that are co-parenting, Nana mentioned quite a few things that you should really think about and consider when you're co-parenting, right? Trust, communication, and putting your child first, children, child, whatever it is. And no matter what relationship you get into, don't let that impact if you have a great co-parenting relationship. And if you don't have a great co-parenting relationship, it you can figure it out, right? It becomes easy at some
yeah,
point. And it's a lot of work and it's difficult just like parenting, but it can really get done. Would you agree?
yeah, for sure. And even like, Ashton's father has a girlfriend.
Yeah.
And I love her. Like, like
Yeah.
but just because I know she treats my son
That's
well,
so
I know that
important.
and that's the only thing that matters to me. I feel like people who can't accept like the other, like the co-parenting's partner, it's more of like a personal thing because either
Mm.
you still have feelings for that person, things like that. But because we're so far away from that, it's like easier to accept, like, okay, this is another person. They're great in my son's life. Like, she treats him well. He's happy. He likes her. So I'm happy.
Yeah.
I just told them the other day, I was like, don't ever leave her.
Right.
Or I asked her, don't ever leave him, please. Because like, I like that Ashton's with you guys because
Yeah.
you're there. Like, I
Right.
love you. Like, So
It is
yeah.
it is a personal thing though, but going back to what you said, and I think it has a lot to do for people that do struggle with accepting your ex's partner. I think me personally would feel like I don't want anybody to replace me as a mother, right? That's a sense.
Yeah.
It's a sense of insecurity because I'm your mom, right? But you have to keep your mind focused and be driven and realize that nobody's going to replace you. You know,
Yeah.
this is you're his mom. Um, he has his dad, and it's okay. He has two dads and two moms. It's all about the love that
And as long
circles for
as
your
that
kids.
person respects you as their mother,
Exactly.
because there are cases that the stepmoms try to overstep, and they want to be more like, oh no, I'm your mother. Like, like
Yeah.
I've heard crazy stories
Yeah. Oh,
of crazy
absolutely.
stepmoms, but she knows I'm his mother. She knows, like, she knows our roles
Yeah.
in his
It's
life.
the three things: communication,
And
trust, and
again, the more
importance.
love, the better for
Yeah.
him. So he has a bonus mom
Yeah.
and a bonus dad. And
Oh, he living his best life. He
yeah,
got a lot of love around him. Okay.
loving it.
The last question. So for our audience, right? We're gonna talk to our audience. What are some, and I think we kind of touch base on this. So sorry guys if it's repetitive. We get into these conversations and it's like, ooh. What are some co-parenting techniques that you recommend to those that are struggling with co-parenting aside from communication? Because we mentioned that.
I mean, I guess everyone's situation is different.
Absolutely.
Because I know of cases that there's parents that have 1 week on, 1 week off.
Mm-hmm.
If you live near the parent, it's a lot easier than what my situation is. But I think ultimately it's just allowing that other person to have their time with the kid and not micromanaging their time, unless it's something very, like, a really important decision to be made. But yeah, just taking yourself away from them when they're with their other parent, it's just like, now this is your time to relax. You don't need to like worry about, I mean, again, I don't know, because everyone's situation is different, but for me, I just feel like when he's with his father, I don't worry. I just, because also, what is that going to do for me? I'm not going to enjoy my alone time if I'm just always worrying about what's going on with his dad, or what are they doing in his house, or what are they letting him do, or what not do, you know?
Yeah, and you can worry about your kid, but also sit down and have some self-reflection and just figure out who you are, what you want to do outside of being a parent. So that's
communication for sure, trusting that person for sure. And even if you feel like you know better, like you gotta let them evolve into the parent that they're gonna be. If, like I said, as long as the kid is safe, like, you gotta let them be the type of parent they want to be. Yeah, and that's really that. I know that's the hardest, especially for mothers, because we tend to like want to be that like voice, we're and nurturing. Like we know best, like we know best, like, so it's okay to like maybe correct certain things, but at the end of the day, like, let the dad be the dad.
But it's also okay to correct yourself too, because we're not always in place. Like we correct.
Yeah, that too. We could take. Yeah, I feel like it also enables certain type of dads to. You see the dads that don't even know their kids because the mom is so much like, this is what I'm saying, and then they don't even know what to do with their kid because they're not allowed to. They're just like, well, your mom, or you know, like, your mom said this, your mom said that, or
like, do you even know how to raise
or they don't know the kid's routine because the mom does it on their own. Like, you know, it's just like, just allow them to be the parent, and that's really it.
And that's the best way to be. Yeah. I would say. And I'm really happy for you that you and Ashton's dad has finally come down to a place where you guys find balance for one another, and for your son. Congratulations on the new baby. Very, very exciting. And I hope that your relationship blossoms into an incredible positive point in your life, because going back to what you said, like, I know the transitions in your life were a lot, and it consumed a lot of emotion. So I think that you deserve to be happy, and so do your kids.
Thank you.
Okay, and I love you.
I love you too.
And for those that are co-parenting, right? I know we went into a lot of different topics within this conversation, but going back to what Nana Joselyn has said, let the parent be the parent, but instill trust and communication, and always prioritize your kids, because their happiness is extremely important. Um, and they're going to thank you. They're really going to thank you. They're truly going to thank you later on when they realize how mature you can be, and work with their dad or their mom. Right? Mm-hmm. Thank you guys for watching. This is Moms That Conquer, and we cannot wait for our next segment, right? If you haven't watched our older segments, go back, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our Instagram posts, comment our posts, give us some feedback, tell us what you think about this. It's super important for us to understand your likes and dislikes and what kind of topics you want to hear. So
thank you for having me.
Thank you for having us.